Welcome back to Beyond the Headline, everyone. I'm so excited that you're here with us on the show because I'm here with the founder and CEO of Seedling, Phoebe Hayman. Phoebe, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's great.
I'd love to start out with your team's unique approach to children's play.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we think about it in a very holistic way. And so when we think about play, we think about, what is it that makes good play and what's exciting and dynamic. And so we're thinking about the experience right from the start all the way through. And we don't make any differentiation here between physical and digital product. We see everything as a tool and everything that's a tool as a part of a really cool experience that we can build in.
I love that you brought that up because as we were just discussing, we live in an age where kids are just growing up with technology. How do you see them respond to both elements?
It's interesting. We don't think that kids see a difference between the elements. We think that the material kind of question of, is this digital or is this physical is purely an adult question, and it's not something that we see driven through child thinking. And one of the latest experiences that we have is a virtual reality maze where you build a physical maze. It's a little arcade game. You then are able to shrink yourself and walk that maze through virtual reality. And to our kids, that is completely natural. They don't think about like, oh, wow, there's this physical product and then I'm doing this digital thing. They're like, yep, I'm using my iPhone as a tool. I'm able to do virtual reality. And like all of this makes sense to them. I think that the distinctions that we've seen in the world are ones that are very firmly rooted in that adult culture. But I don't see that kids are particularly material, kind of concerned, and they're not worried if they're like, well, it's not technology or it is technology. We're just seeing that they're excited about the possibilities and that they're totally enthusiastic about anything they can do on that front to get into it.
And it seems like they're really interested in just creating, being given the freedom to do what they want.
I think they want to be trusted. If there's like one reason as to why Seedling is successful, we design our products for kids in the same way that we would for adults. We're big on quality materials. We're big on like your idea is better than ours. We're simply giving you the tools that you need to make a super cool experience. And that respect of you can make the choices, we want to see where your ideas go. It's process over outcome. They really respond well to that and they get excited. And they don't have to produce something they like. It's not about, sort of producing the Instagrammable moment at the end of like, what I'm making. It's more about, what are the choices I'm making and I'm in control. And I think that that's an exciting piece that kids need to learn as part of their childhood is how to make those decisions for themselves, because at some point they're going to make decisions out in the real world, and we would love it for them to make decisions that have great consequences.
One of the things that I think lends to that really well, so one of the kids from Seedling, let's say my favorite one, Make Your Own Cape, is so I'll make it one day and then I keep it with me all the time and I use it. So they're reminded of what the consequences, I guess, of their decisions.
The outcomes. Yeah, it's really important to us that the things that you make are usable and shareable. So we're looking for that moment of pride. We really want you to be excited about what you built and be able to share it with people and, show off, get excited about it. But also that it's not a trinket that just kind of sits on a shelf and gathers dust. Like I did that and I made it. There's a reason why we're so big on quality materials. We really, like if you change your mind the next day and you want to change it, we want you to go change it. We give you more than enough materials to keep that thing relevant to you. And, we do see that kids are playing with that. And then on the superhero cape, a great example of how we think about telling that story, when we get you to make it, the instructions from our end are, what is your character like? What does your superhero stand for? And trying to get you to develop a character along with your product. And then we have a superhero comic app, comic studio app, where we can get you to actually create a comic book with your cape and with your mask and, really keep the story going. And it's up to you as to how involved you want to be and how far you want to take it.
It's so interesting to me to hear this, especially after you and I were just chatting, because each of these nuances and features really reflect to children's growth. versus
Yes.
just creating a toy. So one of the things that stood out to me is, what do you want your character to stand for?
Yeah.
How do you see them respond to that?
They're natural storytellers. It's interesting. I think one of the hardest things that we come up against is that sort of like adult perception or parent perception that these children are not imaginative on their own. That for somehow they need something, and the reality is you give them the opportunity and they take it and they run with it without a doubt. And I think that's a really important piece for us to support. We're the supporting mechanism there, but the kids are definitely the ones that are driving. And if you put something in front of someone as an adult, they always stop and they don't know what to make. They're kind of like, oh, I don't know, what should I do? Like, what's going to look good? You put it in front of a kid and they're like, okay, well, I'm going to make a turtle and he's got like a robotic arm and then he's going to go save a fire somewhere. Like they have this crazy imagination and like we're just fueling it all the way through.
I love that. And it really, like, it almost lends to what founders tell me about how they lead their teams. Like, you
Well,
give
we
them
do
autonomy.
see, funnily enough, that like, we think about it as raising mini entrepreneurs because like what is it that makes you a great entrepreneur? It is absolutely being able to make decisions, live with the risk, and then decide whether you like the outcome or not. And then learn from that and move into your next kind of piece. So, with a lot of kids, that is the sort of muscle that we're looking to develop and get excited about as they kind of grow into our future generation.
So I had this a little bit further down on the list, but I want to dive in here because I think this is why I became obsessed with Seedling. I was on the site and your brand is so palpable. I stayed on for so long. I was sharing it with friends. I was asking my parents if it would be appropriate for me to get a kit.
Yeah.
Is that why? Because you don't see yourself as a toy company?
Right. Yeah, we don't. We see ourselves as a play company. But essentially we've always described that we're selling experiences. And I think that is also a very modern connection to how we think about the things that we want in our lives. Time is the most, sort of sensitive thing that we have. And what we need more than anything is not things, we need moments. We need to have these shared emotional experiences and we want to be supportive. And I think that it just taps into that in a really authentic way, this sort of like open-ended freedom, but also convenience, in all those pieces that kind of slot together just beautifully, which it is an exciting brand. I mean, I have always been excited and surprised by how much people get excited by what we do, which is nice.
It's hard not to. And maybe
Yeah.
that's because we all want to look at a kit in the same way that a child would and just create whatever came to us instead of thinking, I don't know, or I'm not sure how to do this.
Yeah. I think there's a child in all of us. I mean, we even do it with our team. And one of the saddest things that I always come across is adults that say like, oh, I'm not good at art or I'm not good at, creative things or making things with my hands. And the reason why I struggle with that as a CEO is I'm kind of like, well, what does it matter? Like, why does being good at it make it a prerequisite to doing it? Maybe it just feels good. Maybe it doesn't have to be like this level of a mini Picasso painting. It's all about the process. Maybe just, playing with textures and color is a really therapeutic thing to do with your time. And, where are we putting a value on that as society?
And I think it's those moments when you do remove yourself from the day-to-day and you let yourself create, whether it's baking, whether it's art or music, that's when you really do have those aha moments. You're an artist, and I believe that's some of your art behind you, right?
Yeah, actually, yeah, it is. We didn't talk about that, but yes, it is some of my
So
art.
I was wondering, how does being an artist influence you as an entrepreneur?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, when I first started, I actually went to law school. I've always great academically and great at arguing. So, it's like, well, this is my path to life. I got into it and, it wasn't bringing me the joy that I was looking for. And so I switched over and I did a fine arts degree. And, art for me is a matter of free choice and expression. And it's not that I need to. It's not that I need to do art. It's that art for me is a constant solving problem process. So every painting, you're constantly solving it. Is it ever done? Probably not. Like this one here on my left, I mean, it's it's of my kids, and like it's not finished. I just liked it the way that it was, and I was like, okay, I've got no further problems to solve here. It's met my target, which was like I really wanted to capture this likeness of my children in this photo that I loved. I'm done. I can move on. When I did fine arts, actually installation art is my sort of personal obsession, which is, how do you design and define a space, and how do you create spaces that are interesting and engaging, sometimes alarming. What is it about a space connection that's so much more powerful and immersive than, say, just an image? But it's all the same process, which is, how do I solve this problem? And the most successful artists have solved problems, and I think that that's just a very natural process for me as a person, which is also why entrepreneurship works for me in a great kind of way, that I always have new problems to solve, and it keeps me on my toes.
One of the things you said in that answer that really stands out to me is, when you're creating a piece of art, there's always going to be more things to refine or colors to change.
Yeah.
And when you apply that to business, so like maybe even if you're writing a post, like every time I
Yes.
do, I'm like, I should just change this thing, or I should just change this thing. As a founder and CEO, how do you know as yourself, or when you're telling your team, it's ready now? Like we're gonna
Yeah.
let it go in the world.
It's tough. I think the one great thing about business as opposed to art is that you're serving a customer, and the customer will tell you. So often, like if we are not sure about a product, for example, and we, are discussing it amongst ourselves, you'll often find that my answer to the team is, "Look, guys, the customer will decide." Like let's put to them and see what the thought is. And we have tested a very wide range of products on purpose to be able to see, what is it that's interesting. We're willing to take the risk on putting something out there. And then the question as to how successful it is definitely comes back to the consumer and our community and sort of what they think about it. And that's the one great thing in terms of business, is that you have that person that you're serving. And so I see myself as a support mechanism to the customer. And it's not about me or my team and what we think, but it's about, our brand is defined by our community. And that's as complicated as it gets. And like, we're solving the problems that exist. And if it's not successful, we haven't solved it. And if it is successful, then we have. And, that's a pretty nice, straightforward success element.
What surprised you in that process as you guys release products?
Yeah, there are products that were more traditional for us, and at the moment here in the U.S., like we tested a lot over in New Zealand and Australia, and then we're in the process now of sort of widening our line here in the U.S. But it's probably that traditional skills like cooking and gardening have been as popular as they have been for our products. You kind of assume that these things exist, and in a lot of ways, people are still so excited about those traditional skills and being able to see something real that grows or real that you can eat. And that's been exciting for us, as we've kind of gone through the motions of creating different lines of products, seeing the success on that side.
And grow, just in general, is an amazing one.
Yes, absolutely.
What have been some of your favorite stories from customers?
Um, One that really sticks out to me, we had a paint your own dinner set. Set was one of our first things that we made. It was like a dinner plate, and we at that point were shipping a lot of them into Japan. And we had a customer write to us and say, look, absolutely love your product, but it means so much more to us because my brother had cancer, and my daughter spent a lot of time with her favorite uncle. They took a week and they made this product together, and they made, dinner sets, and they made a few other things. And then she always has that. And unfortunately he passed, but like we still have this thing that we
Wow.
made together, and it represents this time together. And that for us is something that's really powerful and exciting. To see how our products can touch people's lives in meaningful ways. And that's on a, sort of, we get a lot of fan mail and that's really nice. In the simplest setting, we go to events and we do a lot of activities with kids and parents. And in the most simple ways, the moment for me that I love was actually watching these kids in their moment of pride. Like, no matter where you see your product in the world, and I've seen it, like, there's been some moments where you're like, oh my God, like, that's our product. How did it get this far in the world? And there's definitely some sort of like checks and balances. But the magic moments are actually when you're watching some kids and you can just see they feel empowered. They feel excited and they show you what they made. And I'm a complete stranger to them and they don't know who I am. They don't care who I am in terms of the company or the business. And they just say, like, look at what I made. And like, they're amazed at it. And usually, to be honest, sometimes the parent is very amazed at what their child produced. When they gave them complete freedom, like, that's the moment where I feel like we've made the most success.
And you've shared that before, that it's really about the little moments with your
Yeah.
family.
It and your team. In terms of like, entrepreneurship and the journey for me, there's kind of two aspects, and one is definitely the little moments, around, kids and this delight that they get from our products. But the other side also is, having learned to be a CEO that watches people and their personal lives develop and their careers develop, and being part of our ever-growing family of people that we care deeply about. That's actually also been one of the most rewarding things when, we've had challenges to face and, you've gone through that with some people that mean a lot to you. And, that's more than what I ever had expected it to be.
I'm thrilled that you brought that up because you've shared previously that you guys have a sense of humor around your work. What would it feel like if I walked into your office right now?
We're bubbly, young, energetic. I definitely have a great sarcastic sense of humor in terms of myself. My American team sometimes gets that. Sometimes it's a little bit too British to cry. They kind of look at me like, "Are you joking?" And I'm like, "Of course I'm joking." And so, I think I'm funny. It's a fun place. People come in and they hear a lot of laughter and it's a pretty cool office, I have to say. Like, we put a lot of effort into making sure that it's as creative and interesting as our products are. I think they have a great time.
Why is office design and where and how people sit important?
It's really important for us. We, as an entrepreneur, I'm solving the problem of how to be creative in society. I apply that to the inside of our company in just the same way. I do think that there's an energy and an excitement that you need to bring to what you do and a passion. And, people spend more than time here often than they do during the day at their houses. And so for me, office design in terms of like being a home away from home is really important. We spend a lot of, I spend a lot of energy in terms of making sure that it's a great environment for our team. And then in terms of like how they sit and how they work together, it's the same thing. We're always trying to, improve and evolve in terms of our thinking and challenging like the move around sort of how we think about digital and physical product for us and our teams around that. We want to be evolutionary with that and solve that problem and think about like, how can we put you next to someone that actually really kind of drives you love working with, but also has a completely different skill set. That's fun for us to sort of play around with. And sometimes there's great success and sometimes there's not. I won't say that we always get it right for sure. But we are constantly challenging ourselves and have a pretty dynamic environment here.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that because something that just came up in a previous interview, actually with another brew team from Eero, Nick Weaver was saying that, as you grow the company, you just have an intuition about, the way different people respond to things, what types of questions that you should ask.
Yes.
How do you develop that, especially when there's so many people?
Yeah, as you scale, it becomes hard. I do think that like, when there's only 4 of you in an office, people pretty well. And then as you kind of grow out, and now we have 70 people globally in 2 different offices, there's definitely a challenge as to how do you connect with people on a level where I'm supporting them in the right ways. And I think that the key is listening. It's the one thing that we've gone through phases of being very good at it and not so good at it in terms of like how do we give you the opportunity to make your voice heard. But it's something that we see as paramount to the team's success. If I can listen to what's going on and building that intuitive sort of decision making aspect, that's absolutely key. The second thing I think in intuition is be willing to learn. I think that's probably like the most important piece to like how do you become more and more intuitive as time goes on. Everything that you come across is a learning opportunity, and if you do that, then of course you're really building that muscle out in a strong way.
Specifically with your team, how do you make sure that you're constantly learning about them?
I ask a lot of questions. I'm a
Mm.
talker. I'm a talker for sure. Um, I think as a leader, there's a lot of things to overcome when you are learning
Mm.
about people. And I find it challenging, in terms of will they tell me what I want to hear, or are they going to tell me the truth and tell me what they really think? And, I want to know what they really think so that we can absolutely understand how to solve the problems, in our product, in our brand, and like really develop what we're doing. And so I try and make sure that we just have the opportunity for people to have anonymous, sort of
Mm.
discussions where if you have questions, put them down, like let's discuss them. I'm really big on transparency. I think sometimes my team is like, like let's not talk about everything all the time. But I just see it as like communication is the only way for us to be a team that, is high performing. High growth is tough. It's so challenging on, every type of person that comes into this environment because, and this is the hard thing with something like Seedling, everybody loves it. And if you love it, you really want the best for it.
Mhm.
And, that makes every decision a little bit more painful in terms of like if you get it right and if you get it wrong, everyone has something on the line and they care. And that caring is important to me. At the same time, I don't want our team to feel that pressure constantly. So it's a balance, but I think that communication and our shared knowledge is by far the easiest way.
When it comes to the high growth too, and mentioning that you don't want your team to always feel all of the pressure, how do you know what to share and what the senior leaders just need to handle?
That's tough. And I think at each stage of the company it changes too, as to sort of, where that transparency sits. And, it is that thing of, sharing for the sake of actually getting the outcome at the end, and not kind of just creating a lot of stress all over the place. I do think though if you're working towards the right goals and you have people who are sincere and caring about their team, it's just important that we think about how to set up that management structure and give them the tools to be able to think about what is constructive for this new person who just started like 5 days ago, and like what's a true and accurate expectation that I can have on them, because one of the things that I'm really big on is I don't want to bring someone into the company if we cannot provide the environment for success for them. Do they have the resources? Do they have the tools? Are we asking the right questions and the right things? And as you scale, that can always be, a little bit of a challenge to make sure that you have those things at each point. But it's definitely that I'm very focused on, and I really do reiterate with our team around setting our team up, each person up for success. And expectation is an interesting kind of piece around this, is to setting those goals correctly.
How do you navigate that? Setting. I love that you said setting a realistic goal, not like you've come here increase sales by
Right.
300%, because on your
Yeah.
first day, you're like, oh, all right then, like
Yeah.
that's
Sounds good.
attainable.
Sounds like a plan. Yeah. Yeah, and of course people are agreeable, right? I mean, everyone wants to do what they can, and what's interesting I think about me, and it's been a challenge. It hasn't necessarily been, it's not a silver bullet to anything, but I the product reflects me a little bit, where I am very open ended. So when you come in to meet with me, and some of my staff laugh about this because it's something that's pretty well known these days. I will allow you to set the expectation for me. So rather than me assume an expectation for you. And so
That's
I
a
actually
tough one,
treat
actually.
Yeah, I treat you in the same way, and like it can be great, and it can also be
Mhm.
awful. I have to be honest with you. Like, just tell me what you want, and I'm like, okay, like let's figure it out. But I, it's interesting because I will take my expectation based on what you tell me that you actually want to drive and where you want to drive that. And I think that it's super exciting. The hard thing is there are your own expectations as well, and so it becomes challenging to like get that, to not be upset if performance moves around or shifts or changes. But we are completely invested in what we're doing, and that's super exciting, which is great.
As far as the expectations, my dad always tells me, have no expectations and, like see what happens. How do
Yes.
you find a balance between having the expectation and, striving really big, but then tomorrow, huge opportunity comes up and
Yes.
knowing when to shift?
We deal with this every day. I mean, if you come into
Ooh.
our company, people say to me like, "What is the biggest challenge?" And to me, if I'm going to walk in tomorrow, and I sit through, I always do our final round of interviews on all of our team members, and I will say like, your biggest problem is gonna, and your biggest stress is going to come from too much opportunity and the prioritization of like what needs to happen tomorrow, because we have this issue where we might be on a great track to do one thing, and then something like Target comes along, and like we can't say no to that.
It's not the
And
time.
and with our brand, the interesting thing is people always want it yesterday. They're kind of like, oh my God, I just discovered Seedling. Like we have to have it. And so that pressure is like, right there and very tangible and very real. I am a little bit like your dad, where I'm a little bit like, hey, like let's just take a step back and like evaluate, what the opportunity is, and align our expectations with that. Um, but I also have a ton of high achievers. I have an amazing team who want to shoot for the stars, and I had this discussion with someone yesterday where I was like, look, we can shoot for the stars, but we should be so excited that we landed on the moon. And sometimes the fact that like we were shooting so high means that like the moon just kind of seemed a little bit, not good enough for us. And I think it's healthy to have that striving and that dedication. At the same time, I think it can really be challenging on a team where they can see the success. I mean, Seedling is a great brand. People love it. We really are fortunate in that we have a lot of great supporters and believers in what we do. But that also just makes it that little bit harder to accept, what our own personal limitations actually are and what we can achieve. And we're so mission driven around the kids that, we love having user testing groups. At the same time, it makes you just want to do more, faster and harder and better, and improve things as much as possible. But I spend more time with my senior staff actually removing things off of their plate than I do putting things on their plate, where I'm like, hey, how can we de-scope like what you're doing? Or like, there's too much here. We need to focus more tightly. But I mean, the brand has so much opportunity that it can be tough for sure.
What are some of those core things that you're really excited about right now?
So at the moment, we have like three big initiatives that
Mhm.
we're working on. Um, Target has obviously been exciting for our team, and they really enjoyed seeing that. It went all stores nationwide from day one, and that was a big moment for our team. Just to know that there are so many more kids around the country that will be
Mhm.
getting into our products and enjoying that sort of free touch. But there's two others. One is Disney that we're working on. We're doing a collaborative line with Disney that's getting
What?
released in September. Yeah, and I think the team gets excited because we're working with the Disney team pretty closely, and we're applying the same philosophy. Like, so we're refusing, like, we're not making products where like you just make the character from the movie. Like, who
Mhm.
wants to do that? So the way that we think about it is in the same way that we do for all Seedling, which is like, how can we help you become part of the story? So we have like you make your own mermaid tail, for example. And the question is like, if you were Ariel's best friend, like, what would your tail look like? Who would you be? What kind of
Oh my
mermaid
God,
are
I
you?
love this.
Yeah, and the materials are all like same thing. Where they definitely have some definitely Disney elements, so that you're part of the story. Like in the Little Mermaid, like you have the fork, that's the the thingy, and there's parts of that magical element, but then we really want you to drive that vision. And so it's across a bunch of different characters and properties. It's things like Alice Through the Looking Glass, The Jungle Book, Lion King, Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast. We really have taken, some of those beautiful stories and thought about how can a child who loves the story of Belle and Beauty and the Beast get herself into that magical world and see herself in that.
This is
And
brilliant.
yeah, so we're excited. That line is launching for us at the end of summer, and it looks, we're same thing. We're huge on real
Mhm.
materials, quality craftsmanship, and I think you get even more of a reaction to that than you do to like our current online. Where oh my God, like I love that story, but even more than that, I want to do that because I want to have that mermaid crown, or I totally want to have that drum from Lion King. And so it's a lot of fun. We're really enjoying that. It's the first licensed
Mhm.
category. We've done a lot of collaborated lines before, like the one with Target, which is a collab line. We've done a for Goop before, an Honest Company, but this is the first time that we're taking somebody else's story and that we're able to apply our play philosophy to that, and it's a lot of fun.
Well, I think that's so interesting to interject yourself in the story rather than being someone else.
Yes, and we see that really as a pathway. I mean, the true essence of Seedling, right, is like make yourself the story. You decide, and we're applying all of those same rules and elements to licensing, which is super interesting. But when we look at Disney, for example, we're like, well, that's a perfect partner for us. When you go to a Disney experience, it's all about the experience, and that is what they're very focused on delivering and experts at. We see that we're focused on that experience, and we really want to take that beautiful storytelling and like weave it through your own experience, but not make it the experience. And that is the piece that I think is the magical element of Seedling, that we have just a little bit of a different view on how play can be fun and interesting and connected.
I did not expect Seedling, which I perceived was about children's play, to be so applicable to my own life. Now I know I was on the site for so long. I'd
Yeah,
love to close, Phoebe, with a great insight that you shared about an abstract art piece that you did, and you keep it to remind yourself to step back sometimes and reflect on the journey. What have
yeah.
you been reflecting on lately?
It's a great question. I think the question that I ask for myself, more and more, and I come from a background where I love what I do. I don't do it for the job. I'm not here to be, the rock star CEO that just takes over the world. I'm here for the change that I want to see happen in the world around children and how we think about their free time and their play and, what it means to be creative and how we value creative thought. And, as the company grows, it gives me the opportunity to really think about what that pathway is for me and what's important to me. And having the ability to make that change in some big ways has been so fulfilling, in so many ways. And I think that is the moment that you kind of think, okay, we're doing the right thing. And people often say to me, it's been a while that you've been with Seedling, and the key for keeping it. Seedling is always a new company every year, if I'm honest, around sort of like what are the challenges, and that's where the stepping back. There's that famous quote from Steve Jobs, which is, a year is a lifetime at Apple, and
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe that here at Seedling too. That we evolve so much each year with our thinking, our product, our team, that I am a new person each year too, in terms of the role that I play as a CEO, and I'm just super excited about what the journey holds going, towards the future. In the same way that I have so much history, and Seedling is, of course, all of the people that have always worked on Seedling from the start, and those who have supported it through time. So as you kind of get further into it, you also get, further back where you step back further and you think, you know what? It's pretty powerful. It is an amazing journey like that. And I think that that is why you enter the startup world to kind of, you are the new car that you want to test out and see how fast can I go, actually, and if you asked me when I first started, I definitely had a thesis around, how far I could go, and what I thought Seedling was possible of. And the most interesting thing has been seeing me break my own thought pattern around that, and, the company break a lot of the rules, and I've come to realize that I love breaking rules, apparently. That's been a revelation for me, for sure.
Well, I feel like I have had so many revelations today, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to use this to now get my own superhero kit, because I feel like that's probably what
sure.
stirred everything up. I can't thank you enough for sharing your philosophy on play, sharing the Seedling story, and then also how it's really holistic and it comes together. I think it's so important for us all to remember, whatever it is, to take some time to just uninhibited create something that means something to us in whatever capacity. What's the best way for families, for teams and founders to stay up to date with you guys?
It would definitely be, join our email list. We love talking to our community and getting the latest, and always reach out. We love hearing from you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jenna.